Hey everybody, welcome to another Developing Insight when we, do live coding, work on our NWA Coders community website. So today we're gonna be going back through what we attempted to do live last week. So if you want to take it from here, Zach, if you want to recap it real quickly.
Yeah, so the recap of last week was failure. No, so basically, last week we had a couple of issues. Our first one being messing with the Notion API. Their objects, return objects, are pretty in depth and has a lot of different nested things within it, and we ended up like right after finding the solution to it. Of course, that's how it goes. Um, and then the other issue was so we kind of reverted from there, pivoted once we were having trouble with the API, and we started building our Nest backend for the form, and the form was not or not the form, but the back end was not working. We were not able to get stuff going with Postman when it obviously was the code was right. 2 minutes after the stream, Miguel ended up restarting his text editor, and voila, it worked. Magic. So I guess the main moral of the story is try to turn it off and turn it back on again. No, but so yeah, we got quite a bit more done with it. We also have been working on some other stuff as well. We're two busy guys, so I don't know. I guess Miguel, do you want to get
Yeah,
into what we did with the back end?
yeah, definitely. And I want to add that I did install Node version 17. That was not very smart of me. That has shown up on a couple of other errors in other projects. Kind of funny.
Oh,
But
really?
yeah, Notion 17, Notion Nest. No, Node 17
No.
is not
Yeah.
has been everything is so similar in the naming scheme. It's kind of annoying, but yeah, there's some compatibility issues with Node 17 with a couple of scripts, but that's fine. So let me bring up the code. Here we go. Cool. So the way the Nest.js basically works is everything we create is basically its own little option here. So what we want to do is we want to build out our a Notion service within our Nest.js project, which is going to handle all the connections, API calls, anything to do with Notion. And so if I open up my Notion service file here, and we currently only have one connection. We have the create speaker, and because that's going to be the function that's going to be doing the call for our table. And so yeah, so basically with Next.js, we end up using the HTTP service to do our call. So inside of our Notion module, we actually have to define the HTTP module. So we have to import it into our Notion modules as a dependency here. And we're going to be pulling some variables from our NV file. So we're going to be pulling in the Notion URL, and then we're going to set some headers that are required for the API request to Notion. So obviously we need to pass in the Notion API key. Notion requires a version, and that was another issue we had last time where the reason some of the responses were different is because Notion had an updated API that we were not aware of. So the documentation was slightly different from the previous version. But Yeah, so we're pulling all, huh?
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah. It literally was just showing us the new stuff and what it should look like, the return object, and
Yep.
uh, we just essentially attach that with the call, and it works.
Yeah. And we
Uh,
also definitely reviewed the documentation a lot better beforehand now. So yeah, a little bit more familiar with more of Notion's API. So yeah. Sorry, you were gonna add something, Zach.
oh, I was gonna say, I mean, I don't know how many people who watch this would be familiar with environment variables, but really important things to have. Essentially, a lot of times your front end code is exposed, right? Or well, pretty much always, into some fashion, and you don't want to give your credentials out, right? Um, so that's a good way to do that, and it's also really good for different environments. Like if you have different stuff for your dev environment versus production, right? That's uh, everyday thing, right? And so um, to be able to connect to different spots locally versus production, or whatever, right?
Yep, definitely. So it really allows you to not have to hard code sensitive information, dynamic variables that are all defined by the system, right? So you can pull directly from like so on Linux you can pull some variables from the system itself. You can actually pull a bunch of information on how the system is configured with your code, and depending on what version of the server it's currently running, you can check node versions. You can do a lot of really cool stuff by pulling the environment data from the system that you're trying to deploy in. And that kind of gets into Linux servers, other stuff that we mainly won't cover. We'll probably cover some of the ways that we're deploying with DigitalOcean. So we're probably going to cover some of the ways we set the environment variables using the app platform. So
And
um,
I think we're gonna deploy the front end with Netlify. Did we talk about that?
yeah.
The guest speaker form, the well, just the guest speaker form itself, or I can't
Oh
remember.
yeah, yeah. The guest speaker form. Yeah, definitely. So do you want to go a little bit into Nullify?
Into Netlify.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, yeah. So Netlify is literally just like a deployment service. You can do all sorts of cool stuff with it, like Jamstack stuff, and all that cool stuff. But essentially, it's just for deployment, and they got a pretty damn good developer experience. I feel like a lot of stuff is just really quick to deploy, and sometimes even like just a click, right? And boom, it's deployed. You can change your URL a little bit, all that kind of stuff. You can pay for the service and get some more features and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's really cool service, and you can host so many types of projects on there. They just kind of have the stuff ready to go for it. So
Yeah, and one of the features that it has is serverless functions that we might take advantage of later on. So that would be an interesting thing down the line for other simple projects that are not too complex and need a little bit of JavaScript code or something of that sort nature. So um, let me switch over to my screen. Uh, okay, cool.
I didn't know you
So
added my screen there.
yeah, I did. Since you pulled it up, yeah, you didn't share anything that you didn't want to. It's all good.
No, no,
Um,
no. It wasn't.
um,
It wasn't about that. It was the infinite screens.
oh yeah, I saw that. I'm like, oh, gotta get out. Yeah. So on that tangent, we go back into our Notion module. And if anybody's interested, go look up Next.js. That's pretty fun. It's a fun little framework that we're using. It's great.
Not to be
And
confused with next or next.
yeah, Node. Everything starts with an N, right? But yeah. So again, we're importing our HT module. It's part of Next is basically importing Axios here. And again, we're just really so we have to use a factory here to build out this configuration, and we're like registering it into this current module. So basically what that allows us to do is through anything associated with our current Notion module, we're able to import our HTTP service here, and all the configuration, it's all registered up at the parent, and we just by default this is all set up for us. So now we can just do http servers.post.get, and basically do all the calls to our Notion API. And so basically, oh, and then oops, and then so we have our data stuff here, right? So this function actually takes a data type called create Notion speaker DTO. So let's go open that up. Um, create Notion. Yep. So so we build this thing out, kind of matching how Notion is going to return our data, and then we created these other data types for like rich text, date, title, select. So down the line, we're going to be pulling more data and different structures, and breaking down the parts. So like the definitions for rich text, title, selection. We're going to be working on files. Going to be we're going to have to change the way we're going to handle files, because currently Notion's API doesn't allow for uploading images. So
Yeah,
ki-
if you've been to
yeah.
our website at all recently and looked at the guest speakers page, most of the time the images don't show. They show for about 24 hours. It's like a temporary link that it generates, which expires after like 24 hours, and then the link is broken, so the image is broken. And we decided to fix that issue by converting an image, or the image that the guest speaker sends us, their headshot, to base 64, and then it'll from there it'll just be text, right? So we're gonna
Mhm.
change the field in the Notion tables, the database, to accept the string. Instead it's just gonna be text. So that's how we're gonna address that issue.
Yeah, and depending on the image, I mean, it's not the best approach, but at our scale, it's fine. And the cool part about this project is, as we do scale up, we can just refactor, and take a different approach when we need to. Is it rework? Yeah, but this is a community project. It's fun. Allows us to really try out different things. So yeah. Um, and so basically now when we call this function, we're expecting a data type of create Notion. And so now we also have a guest speaker module up here. And if you look inside the provider section in our module, we're basically importing our Notion service, which allows us to Oh, and then we're also importing a Notion module. So basically, when we import Notion module, it gives us access to everything within the Notion module. So again, gives us access to the service, gives us access to um, the let's see, let me open it back up. Yeah, basically, oh, sorry. It gives us access to everything. Gives us access to our HC module. Basically, it imports the entire configuration, which is great. If we had other providers, we could import them as well, right? But this is a very simple setup. So we're importing our Notion service, and now if we jump into our, we're kind of working backwards, but let's go into our guest speaker controller, and basically that's going to be defining our API endpoint. And we currently have one function called create. So this is going to create our um, our speaker record inside of our Notion database, right? And so basically, this function takes in a variable called create Notion DTO. Um, it's pulling that data from the JSON, the body that should be encoded as JSON, and basically now we have a variable. So when we post to the API endpoint, we're grabbing that. We're setting the type to the Notion speaker type, and here's the part. Oh, and up here in our constructor, that's where we're defining our instance of our Notion service. So that way, it's accessible throughout the entire class, throughout other functions we create. So, like if we need to delete a speaker, maybe, or other potential functions down the road. Um, and so now we are able to access our Notion service. We're able to access the create speaker, and then we pass down the data into that because the create speaker requires a variable called, in the same section as like the guest speaker, etc. So we can just pass in the data we got from the API post request. Um, so the app body basically parses the data from the post request and gives us a pretty good structure without having to do the whole grab the whole response or request or whatever. It does a lot of heavy lifting in the background, and so there's a few to do stuff in here where essentially we have
So
this user guard, right? um which basically allows us to check. Let me open up that file. So basically, we're validating a token that's going to be attached to the request, and we're basically validating that it's true. And then if it is a valid token, it's going to allow the request to move forward. If it's not, it's going to block it. Um, so there's some token generation.
I
And
can
go ahead, Zach. Yeah.
I can take a second. The code's not in that version that Miguel's on, but you can see the to dos for generating a new token. How I chose to handle that was just basically I created a random number generator, right? A random number, and then converted that to base 64, which then turns it into a string, right? Just crazy string. And then basically what I did was I generated two random numbers and converted it to base 64 and then combine them. And that's going to be our token, right? Um, and then how we chose to kind of handle that is we were been kind of thinking, and I think we decided on basically what we'll do is within the Notion database, we will have a token that's essentially generated as soon as we send it to the guest speaker, or no, sorry, the other way around. So we'll have the token already ready, and then when we send it to them, They send it back to us, and as soon as we get that response back, a new random number is or a new token is generated, and then we have that just there and ready for the next guest speaker. That's kind of how we're hacking it together right now. There's obviously many ways that we could resolve that issue, but that's kind of how we chose to handle it for now.
Yeah, definitely. There's different approaches we can take. But this one's simple. We're not dealing with anything too secure, so it's not a terrible approach. um,
Yeah, I mean, there's not really sensitive information in there. It's just like their name. The most sensitive
mhm,
thing, I guess, would probably be their email address. But
yeah,
if you're anything like everybody, your email folder just gets sent a bunch of crap anyways. So
yeah, and the main thing we're trying to avoid is if somebody happens to find the API endpoint and try to spam and create a bunch of fake data in our database, right? We can limit it by having the requirement of a token before you get to submit. Um, and so within Nest.js, we do have access to like middleware, but Next.js has guards, which basically are like beefier middleware, where it has more context of what it's doing. Um, and that kind of allows us to work more on how we should handle the request, how to we should redirect it. There's a lot of tooling we can do to make it really nice and from a user's perspective and code wise make it really good flow, because if this function doesn't validate, then it's not gonna actually ever hit this section here. So it's really great that there's no possibility of even like executing that code, no matter how they enter the token, or try to crack the token, etc. So it's a pretty cool little setup there for guards with Next.
can we look at that guard again?
The guard, yeah.
Yeah. So can we walk through a little bit that can activate method as far as like specifically the typing for the TypeScript where we declare the types. Uh, the first
Um,
time I looked at it was pretty confusing.
which types? Like,
Boolean pipe, promise Boolean pipe.
right? Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So, with TypeScript, we're basically going to be returning a true or false statement, right? The whole point of this specific function is to execute a true or false statement. Um, and basically, this is able to handle. We're either going to return a boolean, we're going to return a promise that holds a boolean, or we're going to return an observable that returns a boolean, right? So basically, we define three return types that are okay to return, right? Um, and then here's where we're bringing in our context of our execution context, which basically means it basically holds everything about our request. So I haven't looked at the structure of this interface, but basically it kind of structures everything the way we need it. So because we're gonna be basically putting in the the URL, the token that's coming in through the request, as a query parameter, we're able to grab those arguments, and you can see here that we're grabbing that request, right? Just like any API request, we have access to the actual request, and we're able to grab the query, and then we want to grab the query um, key value of token and grab its value, right? And so then we're able to pass that into our validate token service. So we actually have a guest speaker service here, um, and that it's currently holding. Um, yeah, to do. Right now, this is a terrible way of doing it. Obviously, the to do is to actually build out the validation. But basically, it's just going to check if the token value that we're passing into this function is valid to the auto generated based on our database
So
active token.
it's gonna basically make a request, or we'll already have that request. I don't know, but basically we'll do a request to the Notion database to get grab that value, right?
Hmm.
And then check if it you know is equal, and then boom boom.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, yeah, so we're definitely doing that. And then like again, we're building out the basically since we're currently storing everything in our Notion database, essentially, we're calling it a database. um, that's where we're going to be storing the token. And basically, when it hits this point, it's going to do a request to that database, Notion database, grabs the token that was generated that is currently active, compares it to the token submitted, and basically returns true or false, right? And basically, this option here just returns true or false, and then can activate becomes a true or false statement. And then it either says, yes, you can go ahead and execute the create function or not execute it. And you get, I believe it's a, what was it, like 500 service error, saying that
Yeah.
you have no access to it. Yeah. Um, so that's
Oh,
the quick overview of how we kind of set all this up.
I quickly wanted to note too that Nest uses Rxjs. So if you've ever used Angular, then Angular also uses Rxjs. But if you haven't, you might not know what observables are. I know some other languages use them too. Um, but essentially, it's like a promise, right? But it's like able to handle a sequence of asynchronous events over a period of time, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you can like subscribe to them and all this stuff. I don't like them, but they're part of the next stuff, which is fine. You can see here where I took an observable and then got it extras response and all this, and then I wrapped it inside of a promise, and then then we do the request. Then I have to pipe that into and then map the results and return them. It's it's it is what it is. Yeah. Um, so yeah, that's so that's basically our really basic backend how we're handling that request. Um,
Is it up and running right now, like where we can do requests to it
um,
on the local
yeah,
environment?
like I can run it. Hold
Like
up.
since we were trying to do that last week, and this is the redemption, then we
Well,
must
looks like
redeem ourselves.
I had an update. Cool. Okay. Cool. Okay. So npm run is it dev? Shoot, man.
Is it start dev?
Yeah, start dev. Okay, cool. Yep. And now you can see here that it we have this output here that it did register our endpoint for a post request route. And so we have that up and running. Let's go into our HTML for the front end. I think we kind of went over how this is structure. Let's go into the JavaScript portion of it. And then, it's not too. It's very simple. Because we're just like literally submitting a form. It's not a nothing too complex. So we kind of define a basic speaker object up here. The way we want to structure the data that we're going to be posting to the API. Um, and yeah,
It's
could
got
we
to
make
be
it a
in a
lot?
certain format to
Yeah,
post. That's why you see uh, the key of properties. Its value is this object that looks pretty crazy. um, so yeah, that I mean that's the reason why that looks like that.
Yeah, it has to match our DTO from our backend, and that basically is matched to the way Notion is expecting the data. So right from the beginning, from client side all the way to the backend, all the way to Notion, the whole data just has to be structured that way. And it also makes it a lot easier to refactor down the line if Notion changes something. Yeah, so again, very simple JavaScript. We grab our form. We have a div that just holds the message if it was sent successfully or not. We're grabbing the URL parameters. When we send out the link to a speaker, the token is going to be part of the URL. And so we're just grabbing that token and, from the window.
Oh yeah,
And
did we mention the part about generating the link?
I know, but that's not too important right now.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Because the link you can just put it together yourself, but yeah, we're gonna try to do more of automational stuff later down the road. But yeah, for now, let's stick with this part. And so we're just gonna assign an event listener into our little JavaScript stuff, and basically we're gonna create a new instance of form data, and that's basically gonna allow us to grab we're passing in the our div form, and then we're gonna structure as a data, as a form data. There's definitely better approaches, but yeah, so we just basically now have access to these values by their key names, right? So then we just kind of pull that information and assign it to the proper speaker object property, so like name, topic, slug. So with slug, we basically it's the talk title, and then we just replace the spaces with dashes. Their bio, email, right? We just basically assign that based on the form data, and then we just do our basic API post request. So this is the test URL, and so basically we're posting it to our API endpoint or whatever's going to be guest speaker. This is how we're attaching the token that's going to be validated. And then we're just passing in the speaker object. And it's either going to say you pass submission consent or error, please try again. And then, yeah, that's pretty much um, the request on the front end. We really wanted to keep it simple again.
I mean, it's just a form,
Yeah.
right? We don't need to get too crazy with it. We already have a bunch more stuff like refactoring to do because of branding stuff we're having done. Um, so really, it's all about getting an MVP up and running and refactoring later. I mean,
Hmm.
that's super key in anybody's journey. Learning development is that. So let's see. Should we? Let's
Yeah.
see.
So I
Oh,
just pulled up the form. So let me open up my Notion uh, guest speaker. Okay, cool. Um, there's not too much in here. Okay, so here's our Notion data. Um, the last person or the last entry is Scott. He's gonna be our next key speaker, right?
yeah. It'll
Next
be
week.
no. It'll be on the 15th of December,
Okay,
6:30 to 7:30 Central.
cool. Yeah. So anybody want to check that out? Go ahead. maybe watch it before then. Yeah, so I'm gonna go ahead and submit. Test. I don't think we have validation for email, do we? Or like client side validation.
No, we need to, and then we're gonna leave the image blank right now because there's still some debugging to do with the encoding the image to base 64, and we'll get into that.
Yeah. Oh,
Oh,
got
the
it.
image is it required? No, it's not required. Or
No,
wait,
it's not required.
it, it's not. Are you sure?
Yeah, I made it
T-
that
Okay.
it's not required. We got an error. Why? Hold up. Token is null. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Let me oh wait, why is token null? Oh, yeah. Hold up. Let me add token. There you go. Okay, let me add the token and okay, so that's a good example actually of if you don't have a valid token, you can't even post it. That made sense. To the back end. That's generally what you're gonna expect if you post it and don't have a valid token. So yeah, it looks here. We have a successful submission. Now, if we go back into our Notion, you can see that here we have this new item, new record showing up. So yeah, it works. All that work for one record, but um,
Redemption, it just tastes so sweet.
yeah, definitely. And so you saw that we were basically our token system kind of works. If you put everything correctly with a valid token, the submission goes through. If you don't, it doesn't. We definitely need to refactor a little bit of the token and push that and merge it into my version. But yeah, that's kind of what's gonna happen. And then yeah, that kind of covers the guest speaker. I think the only it's pretty close to that we can release it. We are we got a designer to help out essentially. So we're mainly developers, so we're not that good at designing. And then have a more standard branding guideline. So that's going to allow us for creating more projects around the community and basically standardizing a lot of things. That way, all these tools just kind of really match design language and all that fun stuff. And it kind of does give you that feel of working on a larger, community projects that kind of integrate with each other and actually look like they integrate with each other um, without having too much issues, right? And having to deal with what colors and all that fun stuff that should be used. So probably after the holidays, we'll probably
Most
get
definitely.
yeah, because we're gonna be refactoring the entire community website. So nwcoders.com. It's gonna be changing. It's gonna be a big refactor on the Notion end because the new design incorporates a lot of new features that come with it as well. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah, this project is definitely getting bigger. So if you're um, eager to contribute to something that is early on and really leave your mark, that'll be a good opportunity. And again, we're going to be and that so another big part of building out a community is and making it actually fun to contribute and work with is basically providing tickets that people can just pull. And so we're going to be hopefully and probably do a lot of it during our live streams as well, like be working out and creating issues that people can just pick up and create pull requests for, right? For the front end, for the back end, we're going to be that makes it a lot easier for people to join the community, contribute without having to be like, what should I work on, right? um, we're gonna
Yeah,
have
you get
we're gonna have
pipeline
tickets.
experience.
Yeah, you'll grab the whole flow from getting a ticket, assigning it to yourself, doing pull requests, getting feedback, the whole the whole 9 yards.
The whole shebang. Should we
uh,
get into debugging and shall we? I don't
what do
know.
you want to debug?
I'm working on that encoding the image right now.
Okay, do you want to bring it up on your screen?
Yeah, give me 1 second here.
Let me add it. I'll add it for you.
I
Oh,
added
there
it.
we go. Cool, cool, cool.
Okay, so we discussed the front end a little bit. We went over it. So yeah, here it is. Like I said, I'm currently debugging. Um, so essentially, we talked about this a little bit earlier. We're trying to, when the user chooses an image, right? They basically what it's gonna, we want it to do, the way it's supposed to do it is going to be, they click an image, it turns it, encodes it to base 64, and then it's going to output that image right next to it. Right now it's over here just because I'm in the middle of debugging and I'm not going to mess with the styles too much. I do have a working version of it right here. I guess we can pull up one of our guest speakers. Right now I have it alerting with the base 64 value. You can see this long string, right? We see there's Mr. John Cooperman, awesome guy he is. So essentially, that's how we want it to work. It's a little bit different because it's kind of hard to, you can't really style these input buttons. You have to do a work around for the input itself. And so that's what it is here. We have an image that when it's clicked, it has a function that actually clicks a hidden input button that you can't see. So,
Inception.
what?
I said Inception.
Inception, yes. So, let's see. That's this function right here, right? It just, we just grab that element, the headshot element, and then we click it, right? We do that programmatically since it's hidden. You can't actually physically click it with your mouse. So you can kind of look at that real quick. Here it is. The input, which I have hidden within the CSS, and I've got an on-click event, and whenever that event happens, it calls that function I just showed. Um, and how I am going to be encoding the image is making use of the file reader. And basically, I'm pretty new to it, but it provides asynchronicity to the upload of a file. Um, and so essentially, it makes it a lot easier to deal with. You don't have to deal with race conditions, essentially. So you can see I've currently got a bunch of console logs trying to debug what's going on. What I've discovered is that this is not being hit, this anonymous function. Um, and so my working version of it is down below, right here. And we can see it's pretty similar. Obviously, the variables are switched around, but we're still capturing the element that we want, and we're getting the files off of it. I'm feeling like maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know if I have any logic that's quite like that. Oh, well, instead of doing it like they're doing it, I could just do it like that, right? Grab the first one because there's only going to be one image that's
Mm-hmm.
uploaded. So we don't need that, right? Um, Essentially, I'm going to kind of mark that this can go away. Let's see. Next, what we do. So we have the if condition. If it's greater than 0, so that matches up with this. We declare our new file reader object, or is that? I think it's an object. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Then we have our arrow function here. So we have file reader when it loads. Okay. Doing the function just slightly different. That doesn't matter. I'm capturing the result, or am I? So we can test that out real quick. We've got. Oops. I do that all the time, by the way. So I've saved that. Let's pull this up, and it's actually going to be in the. We'll just pick a picture. We'll use John again. I swear we'll give Eric some
Don't you
love.
have to refresh?
No, I will, but no. I shouldn't have to. I don't think.
Oh wait, are you using live server?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
So let's look at the. I uploaded an image. Uh, Going into my DevTools, of course. Uh, and I get an output of "you suck." That's me pep talking myself. But I can see that there is, like, I'm capturing that uploaded image, so that's
Yeah.
good. Let's go back to here. Bring this back up.
So your condition for your if statement is not true.
I guess so.
User
It
headshot
wasn't like
timeline.
that before, though. But so let's see. Oh, let's see. I don't need to check that, right?
You just got yeah.
If there is a headshot, which there is, there will be whenever
Ultra wide extension loaded. Interesting.
I've got ultra wide monitor over here. Let's look at the console. We're gonna go ahead and upload. We'll do Eric Burden this time, even though we can't see his face.
You might get better luck.
All right, so the if condition was hit, and
Mm-hmm.
we've got our file. So let's go back. All right, so I am reaching here. No,
Hmm.
no, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm reaching
Yep.
this, and I'm reaching this.
Mm-hmm.
The condition was hit, we'll just update that to that. If condition hit, all right. And then for some reason, though, this isn't being hit.
Um, hmm. Do you have to
So,
await that data?
no, because of file reader on load is
Mm-hmm.
able to handle uh, asynchronous stuff. So we can actually show that if I can remember file reader. I can. It's like file something. It's file something. So here, I'll go ahead and bring this up. Sorry to blind you with the white. This on. There we go. So there we go. It's able to asynchronously read the contents of files or raw data buffers stored on user's computer using file or blob. And so the input type we have is a file. So we can look at that
Mm-hmm.
element. We can see it, the type is file, right? I'm only accepting image PNG, right, or image JPEG. I haven't tested that code out yet, but we'll see another time. All right, so um, why is this not hitting? So one of my, I guess my kind of first inkling is what's different about this function and this function uh, and the elements, right? So here's the one element that I showed that actually works. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we can see here headshot stuff. Um, so what's different? One thing is that that button is hidden. Um, should that have anything to do with it? I wouldn't think so because you can click it and the um, file uploader comes up, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's not getting hit. So my next inkling is to look at this. Do I need the alert?
Well, I mean, it does it seems to never actually hit the unload, right? Because then
Yeah,
your image loaded log would be logged out, right?
yes, it's never hitting line 59.
So, um, yeah, that's an interesting issue.
It is, and my kind of first inkling is to literally just do it almost the exact same way, and then from there refactor to what I'm wanting.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'll probably end up doing, and we're getting close to time here, so I'm not probably gonna do this just yet. But what I'll probably do is come in here to the working one and change my variables around to be essentially the same as this. I'll grab the correct elements, right, and all that jazz, and kind of work through it
Mm-hmm.
like that.
I mean, the only
So
difference is I see is you're using var in one of them and using lead on the other, but I
yeah, that
don't think that would matter with the scoping.
it wouldn't.
I
It, I mean, there's no way that could.
I
'Cause I honestly thought I
mean,
had
I'm
a
just saying
con.
because if we're looking for differences, that's a difference. But
It
I
is.
don't feel like.
I mean, we could even say that this is a difference, right?
Yeah, exactly.
uh, right? And
Yeah.
so you can. This is brings up an important lesson though about simplifying things, getting something working, and then refactoring from there.
Mhm.
This is a small project, so once you get into bigger projects, you got way more working, moving parts, and it can get extremely confusing, especially if you're newer to the code base, uh, and you just haven't got to hit all of the stuff yet. So I feel like super helpful thing to do is basically get something up and running on like Stack Blitz or any of the online text editors for coding, right? Replit or I don't know. There's other ones. There's a bunch of them, but uh, Code Sandbox,
Yep.
and you just get something working very minimally. You could even make a new file, right? A new project, and do it like that. Whatever works, but uh, simplifying things, getting something working, and then refactoring later will honestly probably save you just a ton of time. Um, and that's just because of the confusion that comes with so many working parts. So let's see. Any other differences? So we set our source data to file loaded event, its target, and its result, right? So,
Mhm.
but really, it's just not even calling this. So,
Yeah. So
anyways, I'll refactor it and I'll come with my second redemption on that. But
Redemption, the sequel.
yeah, redemption's redemption.
Oh man.
Um, so here's a difference. I mean, I realize we're not even hitting this function,
Mhm.
so uh, cool. But essentially, I want to control the uh, the size. What this is kind of backwards right now. Yeah, it's actually backwards. So we will want to control the size of the image, right? It's just going to be a preview. So we'll control
Mhm.
the size of the preview image, uh, and then with height, right? Uh,
Do you want to start wrapping up? We got a minute left.
yeah, yeah. Let's. Sorry, I'm just gonna get all lost in this.
Once you dig into the debugging, we'll be here till midnight.
Hey, man. All right,
Oh
so let
no,
me.
I'm not talking about like not being able
How
to
how
solve it,
dare
but
you talk about my coding skill?
well, not about the skills, but more
I'm
about
just
like
kidding.
getting into the rabbit hole of just coding and coding.
Yeah,
um,
I could literally just go on. So yeah, I mean that's kind of what we've been doing. We'll come back next week with some more. Also wanted to quickly notate that I believe the 16th is that what we discussed. The is the last Thursday we'll stream this month, and
uh,
there's
that
was it.
yeah, that maybe.
We'll see. We'll
Yeah,
keep everybody informed. Essentially, it's getting ready to be around the holidays again, Christmas, New Year's, right? We're going to take a break. We'll keep everybody informed and we'll be back. If you're watching this, you're awesome. Thank you. And hopefully you gain some sort of value from it, whether that be laughing at us or learning something new, preferably
yeah.
the latter.
Yeah. I
But
mean, for Christmas, you can contribute some code. Oh, you muted Mike,
give
Zach.
the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're signing off. And we don't see anybody, and that you guys watch the video, the recording, Christmas, all that fun stuff. See ya.